What if I told you that being single as you grow older is not loneliness, but a path to true freedom and self-mastery? We live in a world that constantly tells us happiness is found in companionship, that as you age, having a partner is the only way to avoid loneliness. But what if that narrative is flawed? What if being single could actually bring you more freedom, more peace, and more fulfillment than any relationship ever could? Think about it. How many people do you know who are in relationships yet feel utterly alone? How many feel trapped, burdened by expectations, by conflicts, by routines that no longer serve them? In this video, we're going to explore why being single, especially as you grow older, might just be the wisest decision you could make. You'll discover 6 powerful Stoic reasons why living without a partner can lead to a life of freedom and peace, a life true to yourself. We'll draw wisdom from the greatest Stoic philosophers, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, men who mastered the art of inner peace without depending on anyone else for their happiness. And here's the surprising part. The great Stoics never sought happiness in relationships, but within themselves. Why? Stay until the end, because the last reason might completely change how you view your own life. If you've ever felt trapped, drained, or incomplete in a relationship, you're not alone. If you've ever wondered whether you really need a partner to be happy, this video is for you. Let's begin and discover the freedom, the peace, and the power that come from embracing solitude and finding happiness within yourself. Freedom to be yourself. Have you ever felt the pressure to be someone you're not, just to fit in, just to be accepted? In relationships, we often find ourselves compromising, sacrificing parts of who we are just to keep the peace. But at what cost? The Stoics believed that true freedom comes from being true to yourself, without masks, without pretenses. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." In other words, stop trying to live up to someone else's expectations and start living as your authentic self. But how often do we lose ourselves in relationships? How often do we bite our tongues, silence our dreams, and wear a version of ourselves that feels safe but isn't real? When you're in a relationship, you're constantly negotiating, constantly compromising, not just on plans or decisions, but on your very identity. You mold yourself to fit the needs, the desires, and the expectations of someone else. And in doing so, you start to forget who you really are. Being single frees you from that. It gives you the space to rediscover yourself, to reconnect with your own voice, to pursue dreams that are yours alone. Imagine waking up each day and asking yourself, what do I truly want today, without having to consider anyone else's opinion or expectation? That's the beauty of independent living. Take Sarah, for example. For years, she silenced her passion for art because her partner thought it was impractical. She sacrificed her creativity to keep the peace, to avoid arguments, to meet someone else's idea of what her life should look like. But when she found herself single again, she also found her passion reignited. She picked up a paintbrush and rediscovered a part of herself she had buried for years. She didn't just find her art again, she found herself. Being single allows you to be fully, unapologetically yourself. You're no longer confined by someone else's version of you. You don't have to filter your thoughts, dilute your dreams, or justify your choices. You get to be you in the purest sense. This isn't about avoiding commitment or shunning relationships. It's about understanding that your identity is yours alone, and no one should have the power to take that away from you. When you live for yourself, when you honor your own truth, you become stronger, more grounded, more complete. The Stoics teach us that freedom isn't about escaping responsibility. It's about living in alignment with your true nature. Epictetus reminds us, no man is free who is not master of himself. When you're single, you are the master of your life. You decide who you are, who you want to become, and how you choose to live each day. But here's the paradox. When you truly know yourself, when you fully embrace who you are, you actually become better at connecting with others. You attract people who resonate with your authenticity, who respect your boundaries, and who love you for who you really are, not for who they want you to be. Now, let's talk about something equally important: emotional peace. How many relationships do you know that are filled with tension, arguments, and unmet expectations? We often hear that love requires work, that compromise is necessary, that disagreements are normal. But what if you didn't have to constantly negotiate your happiness? What if you could simply exist in peace, without the emotional drain of unnecessary conflict? The Stoics teach us that peace is found within, not in the approval of others. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Many of the struggles people face in relationships aren't about real issues, but about imagined expectations. The need to be understood, the desire to be validated, the constant battle to prove oneself. But when you embrace solitude, when you stop expecting another person to complete you, you free yourself from all of that. No more wondering if your words will be misinterpreted. No more walking on eggshells to avoid an argument. No more feeling unseen, unheard, unappreciated. Think about it. How many times have you seen a couple sit together in silence, not out of comfort, but out of disconnection? Being with someone does not mean you won't feel lonely, and being alone does not mean you will be lonely. Consider John, a man who spent decades in an unfulfilling marriage. He stayed because he feared solitude, feared the idea of being alone. But when his marriage ended, he realized something powerful. He had spent years trying to make someone else happy, but had never taken the time to ask himself, what makes me happy? For the first time in his life, he had space to think, to breathe, to simply be. And in that space, he found peace. The Stoics understood that solitude is not a curse, it is a gift. Epictetus wrote, "He who is not content with what he has would not be content with what he desires." If you are not at peace alone, you will not find peace in another person. If you do not love your own company, no relationship will ever be enough. So ask yourself, do you truly need a partner, or do you simply fear being alone? Is your desire for a relationship based on love or on avoidance of solitude? Because solitude is not emptiness. It is space to grow, to heal, to become whole. And when you realize that, you stop seeking completion in others. You stop looking for someone to fix your loneliness. You embrace the freedom, the peace, the self-worth that comes from standing fully on your own. So the next time someone asks you, "Why are you still single?" smile and say, "Because I am free," because you are. Emotional peace over unnecessary conflict. Being in a relationship doesn't always mean being at peace. Many people assume that companionship guarantees happiness, yet countless individuals find themselves in relationships filled with tension, misunderstandings, and emotional exhaustion. They argue over small things, carry the weight of unmet expectations, and wake up feeling more drained than fulfilled. But what if I told you that choosing to be single can lead to a level of peace and emotional clarity that few people ever experience? The Stoics understood this long ago. Epictetus once said, "If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." In other words, if you truly want to live freely, you must stop worrying about how others perceive you. Most of our emotional struggles stem from trying to meet expectations, those of society, our partners, even ourselves. When you are single, you remove many of these pressures. You no longer need to navigate the complex web of someone else's emotions, compromise on things that don't align with your values, or engage in endless discussions about problems that often have no solution. How many times have you seen a couple arguing in public, their voices filled with frustration, their faces tight with resentment? How often do relationships become battlegrounds where love is replaced by power struggles, emotional blackmail, and the endless tug-of-war between personal freedom and shared responsibilities? When you step away from that, when you choose to be alone rather than entangled in unnecessary conflict, you create space for something extraordinary: inner peace. Take David, for example. He spent years in a marriage that left him feeling drained. Every conversation turned into an argument. Every decision required negotiation. He found himself constantly trying to defend his choices, to explain his needs, to justify his feelings. The emotional exhaustion became unbearable. Then, after his divorce, something changed. At first, the silence felt strange, almost unsettling, but over time, that silence transformed into something powerful: peace. He realized that for the first time in years, he could make choices without fear of judgment. He could spend his time how he wanted, embrace his interests, and most importantly, let go of the stress that had consumed him for so long. This is the power of solitude. It is not loneliness, it is the absence of chaos. It is the ability to wake up in the morning without the weight of someone else's expectations pressing down on you. It is the freedom to be yourself without needing approval or validation. It is the ability to focus on your own well-being, to nurture your own mind, and to cultivate emotional stability without external disturbances. Seneca reminds us, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. So much of the stress and anxiety that relationships bring do not come from real problems, but from imagined fears. The fear of being alone, the fear of disappointing someone, the fear of not being loved enough. But once you remove those fears, once you detach yourself from the constant need to be understood by someone else, you begin to understand yourself on a much deeper level. Imagine waking up in the morning and instead of preparing yourself for a conversation about why you didn't do something the way your partner expected, you simply exist. Imagine making a decision and not having to worry about whether someone else will agree with it or be offended by it. Imagine being able to read in complete silence, to walk alone without feeling the need to explain why, to engage in your hobbies without interruption, and to live each moment without conflict. Some people believe that love and relationships are worth the struggle. But here's the thing: real love does not feel like a struggle. It does not require you to sacrifice your emotional peace just to keep it alive. A relationship that constantly drains you is not love. It is an attachment built on fear. The Stoics believed that true strength comes from within. Epictetus wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This means that peace is a choice. It does not come from fixing external circumstances, but from adjusting your internal response to them. And that is what being single offers: complete control over your emotional state. You no longer need to engage in unnecessary battles. You no longer have to explain your emotions to someone who might never truly understand them. You no longer have to compromise your peace for the sake of someone else's comfort. You are free to live as you choose, without conflict, without stress, without the exhausting cycle of pleasing another person at the cost of your own well-being. But here's the surprising part. When you fully embrace solitude, you don't just eliminate unnecessary conflict. You also learn how to manage emotions more effectively. You develop patience. You cultivate resilience. You strengthen your ability to navigate life without external validation. And when you do this, something interesting happens. You become far more peaceful in your interactions with others. You no longer react impulsively. You no longer feel the need to prove yourself. You no longer seek validation from relationships, because you have already found everything you need within yourself. So the question is, do you want peace, or do you want endless compromise? Do you want freedom, or do you want emotional battles that leave you drained? Do you want to wake up each day feeling light, unburdened, completely in control of your life? Or do you want to continue negotiating your happiness with someone else? Being single is not just about being alone. It is about creating an environment where peace is your default state. It is about removing the noise, the unnecessary debates, the emotional confusion. It is about finding clarity in solitude. When you stop seeing singleness as an absence of something and start seeing it as a presence of peace, you begin to realize that you have not lost anything. In fact, you have gained everything. So the next time someone tells you that being single is sad, smile. Smile because you know something they don't. Smile because you have found what so many people are still searching for. Smile because you have chosen emotional peace over unnecessary conflict. And that is true freedom. Mastering the art of solitude. What if being alone was not a curse, but a blessing in disguise? What if solitude was not about emptiness, but about discovering who you truly are? We live in a world that constantly tells us that being alone is something to be feared, something to be fixed. But the Stoics understood something profound, something most people miss. Seneca once said, "If you are alone, you are in good company." Think about that for a moment. If you are alone, you are in good company. Why? Because solitude is not about being isolated. It's about reconnecting with yourself. It's about removing distractions, shedding pretenses, and finally, being honest with yourself. It's about looking inward, instead of constantly seeking validation from the outside world. But how often do we run from solitude? How often do we drown ourselves in noise, in social media, in meaningless conversations, just to avoid being alone with our own thoughts? We've been conditioned to believe that being alone means being lonely, that solitude is a void that needs to be filled. But the truth is, solitude is not about emptiness. It's about fullness. It's about creating space. Space for growth, for reflection, for self-discovery. Imagine waking up in the morning and the first voice you hear is your own. Not the noise of the world, not the expectations of others, just you and your thoughts. Imagine having the time to explore your own mind, to question your own beliefs, to redefine your own values without anyone else's influence. That is the power of solitude. Seneca understood this, and so did many great Stoics. They practiced solitude, not as an escape from the world, but as a journey into themselves. They saw solitude as a path to wisdom, a way to understand the world by first understanding themselves. When you are alone, truly alone, You can no longer lie to yourself. You are forced to face your own fears, your own insecurities, your own truth. But most people fear this. They fear the silence, because in that silence, they must confront themselves. They must confront the parts of themselves they've been avoiding, the truths they've been denying. They must confront their own thoughts, their own emotions, without the distraction of someone else's presence. But here's the paradox. It's only when you face this silence that you find peace. Take Emily, for example. After her divorce, she found herself alone for the first time in years. At first, the silence was unbearable. She filled her days with noise, TV, social media, anything to avoid the emptiness she felt. But one day, she decided to face it. She sat in silence. She listened to her own thoughts. She allowed herself to feel the emotions she had been avoiding. And in that silence, she found herself. She discovered passions she had long forgotten, dreams she had abandoned, strengths she never knew she had. She realized that being alone was not about loneliness. It was about freedom. Freedom from expectations, from judgments, from the need to be someone she was not. This is the art of solitude. It's about embracing the silence, not fearing it. It's about using solitude as a tool for self-discovery, for growth, for inner peace. The Stoics believed that wisdom comes from within, and solitude is the gateway to that wisdom. But here's the surprising part. When you master the art of solitude, you also master the art of connection. Why? Because when you are truly comfortable with yourself, you no longer need others to fill a void. You no longer seek approval. You no longer crave validation. You no longer depend on others for your happiness. You are whole, complete, at peace within yourself. And when you connect with others from this place of wholeness, the connections are deeper, more authentic, more fulfilling. You are no longer trying to impress, to prove yourself, to gain acceptance. You are simply sharing your presence, your truth, your essence, without fear of rejection or judgment. This is why being single, embracing solitude, can be one of the most powerful journeys you ever take. It is not about isolation, it is about self-mastery. It is not about loneliness. It is about discovering the richness of your own inner world. But most people never realize this, because they never allow themselves to be alone long enough to find out. They jump from one relationship to another, from one distraction to another, never giving themselves the gift of solitude. They fear the silence, the emptiness, the discomfort. But here's the truth. That discomfort is the beginning of growth. That silence is where you find your inner voice. That emptiness is where you create your own meaning, your own purpose, your own life. So ask yourself, when was the last time you were truly alone? When was the last time you sat in silence and listened to your own thoughts, your own heart, your own soul? When was the last time you faced yourself without distraction, without escape? If you can't remember, maybe it's time to give yourself that gift. Maybe it's time to stop running, to stop filling the silence with noise, to stop fearing solitude. Maybe it's time to embrace the art of being alone, to discover the beauty, the wisdom, the power that lies within you. Because here's the secret. You are never truly alone when you are at peace with yourself. You are never truly lonely when you are in good company with your own thoughts, your own dreams, your own soul. You are never truly empty when you have mastered the art of solitude. So the next time someone asks you, "Why are you still single?" smile and say, "Because I have learned to be in good company with myself." Because that is the true mastery of solitude. Investing in self-growth. Have you ever wondered what could happen if you invested all the energy you pour into relationships into yourself instead? What if, instead of seeking validation from others, You sought growth within yourself. What if the time you spent negotiating compromises was spent mastering a new skill, expanding your mind, or pursuing a passion? This is not about selfishness, it's about self-growth. And that is the true power of being single. When you're alone, you are free from distractions, free from emotional demands, free from the expectations of another person. This freedom is the gateway to self-mastery. It allows you to invest in the most important relationship you will ever have, the relationship with yourself. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This quote is not just about reacting to life's challenges, it's about mastering yourself. When you are not constantly navigating someone else's emotions, when you are not sacrificing your dreams to fit into someone else's life, you have the power to fully focus on yourself. Think about it. How much time and energy do people invest in relationships? They negotiate, they compromise, they adjust, they give and take, all to maintain a bond. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what if you redirected that energy inward? What if you invested it in learning, growing, and becoming the best version of yourself? The Stoics believed that the ultimate purpose of life is self-mastery, not to control others, but to master your own mind, your own actions, your own destiny. This is where true strength lies. Imagine waking up in the morning and the only agenda you have is your own. No need to explain your plans to anyone. No need to negotiate how to spend your day. You are free to design your own life. You are free to chase your passions, to learn new things, to grow without limitations. You are free to focus on yourself, not out of selfishness, but out of self-respect. Take Sarah, for example. She was in a long-term relationship for over a decade, always compromising, always sacrificing her own dreams to fit into someone else's life. When the relationship ended, she felt lost. She realized that she had spent so much time adapting to someone else that she had forgotten who she was. But then she did something remarkable. She chose to invest in herself. She went back to school, pursued her passion for writing, traveled to places she had always dreamed of visiting, and reconnected with her own identity. Today, Sarah is more confident, more fulfilled, and more at peace because she chose to focus on her own growth. This is not about isolation, it's about transformation. When you are single, you are not just alone, you are free. Free to explore your own potential, free to challenge yourself, free to grow without limitations. You have the power to cultivate new skills, to master new knowledge, to transform your weaknesses into strengths. This is the essence of Stoicism. The Stoics believed that life is a journey of self-mastery. They believed in focusing on what you can control and letting go of what you cannot. Marcus Aurelius didn't waste his energy trying to change people. He focused on changing himself. He wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one." This is the key to self-growth. Stop trying to fit into someone else's definition of success or happiness or worth. Define it for yourself. Focus on becoming who you want to be, not who others expect you to be. But here's the surprising truth. When you fully invest in your own growth, you also become a better friend, a better sibling, a better human being. Why? Because when you are at peace with yourself, when you are confident in your own worth, you no longer need validation from others. You are no longer needy, no longer insecure, no longer dependent on external approval. You give freely without expectation. You love without attachment. You connect without losing yourself. This is the paradox of self-growth. The more you focus on yourself, the more you have to give to the world. The more you invest in your own growth, the more valuable you become to those around you. You become an inspiration, a source of wisdom, a beacon of strength. You show others what is possible when you stop seeking fulfillment outside yourself and start cultivating it within. But most people never reach this level of growth. Why? Because they are too busy trying to fit into someone else's life. They are too busy compromising their own dreams, sacrificing their own goals, settling for less than they are capable of, just to maintain a relationship that no longer serves them. But what if you chose a different path? What if you chose to be single, not out of loneliness, but out of a commitment to your own growth? What if you chose to focus on yourself, to master your own mind, to shape your own destiny? This is not about rejecting relationships. It's about embracing self-mastery. It's about realizing that the most important relationship you will ever have is the one you have with yourself. And when you fully invest in that relationship, when you fully commit to your own growth, you become unstoppable. You become unbreakable. You become the master of your own life. So ask yourself, what could you achieve if you invested all the energy you pour into relationships, into yourself? What dreams could you pursue? What skills could you master? What version of yourself could you become if you stopped settling and started growing? This is the power of being single. It's not about loneliness. It's about liberation. It's not about emptiness. It's about fullness. It's not about giving up on love. It's about falling in love with your own potential. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. When you are single, you have full power over your own mind, your own time, your own destiny. You have the freedom to focus on yourself, to grow without limitations, to become the best version of yourself. So the next time someone asks you, "Why are you still single?" smile and say, "Because I'm too busy mastering myself." Because that is the ultimate investment, the ultimate power, the ultimate freedom. Choosing meaningful relationships. What if the relationships you hold on to are actually holding you back? Many of us fear solitude so much that we cling to connections that drain us, mistaking familiarity for fulfillment. But the Stoics understood a fundamental truth. Relationships should enrich our lives, not burden them. Epictetus once said, "Only the educated are free," and this extends to the people we choose to surround ourselves with. True freedom is not just about being alone. It's about having the wisdom to discern which relationships are worth keeping. Imagine a man who spent years in toxic friendships, feeling obligated to stay because of history, guilt, or social expectations. Each conversation left him drained. Each interaction felt more like a transaction than a genuine connection. One day, he realized that the weight he carried wasn't just emotional. It was the cumulative effect of years spent maintaining relationships that no longer served him. When he finally let go, he found something surprising: peace. In solitude, he gained clarity. And in that clarity, he discovered something even more valuable: the power to choose who truly deserved a place in his life. Society often pressures us to believe that being alone is a failure, that a life without constant social validation is somehow incomplete. But the Stoics saw things differently. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." If you are trapped in unfulfilling relationships, are you truly living? Or are you merely existing to meet the expectations of others? The people around you should elevate you, challenge you, and align with your values, not manipulate, drain, or control you. This doesn't mean shutting people out for the sake of isolation. On the contrary, it means prioritizing depth over breadth. A single meaningful relationship is worth more than a dozen shallow ones. True companionship is not measured by the number of people in your life, but by the quality of those connections. Ask yourself, are the people in my life supporting my growth, or are they stalling it? Do they encourage me to be my best self, or do they demand that I conform to their expectations? Consider Seneca's advice. Associate with those who will make a better man of you. This is not about arrogance or superiority, it's about mutual growth. A relationship, whether romantic or platonic, should be a partnership in virtue. If someone in your life consistently brings negativity, if they pull you away from your path rather than walk alongside you, then what is their purpose in your journey? The Stoics were ruthless in their pursuit of a meaningful life, and they understood that not all relationships are worth keeping. Think of a sculptor carefully chiseling away at a block of marble. Every strike removes excess, revealing the form within. Your relationships should be the same. Cut away the unnecessary, the distractions, the obligations born from fear rather than genuine connection. What remains will be the relationships that truly matter, the ones built on mutual respect, shared values, and an unwavering commitment to self-improvement. This is not an easy process. It requires honesty, courage, and the willingness to let go. Some people will not understand, some will resist. But the greatest act of self-respect is to choose who you allow into your life with intention. As Epictetus reminds us, if you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Others may judge your choices, but their opinions do not determine your path. So take a moment to reflect. Look at the relationships in your life. Are they making you stronger or weaker? Are they aligned with your values, or are they distractions from your true purpose? The choice is yours. Freedom is not just about being alone, it's about choosing wisely. Let go of what no longer serves you and watch how much lighter your life becomes. Finding happiness within yourself. What if the happiness you've been searching for has been within you all along? In a world that constantly tells us we need someone to feel complete, it's easy to forget that true fulfillment comes from within. The Stoics understood this well. They taught that happiness doesn't depend on external circumstances, but on how we interpret them. Seneca once said, "He who is contented is rich, not rich in wealth or possessions, but rich in spirit, in peace, in freedom." Imagine waking up each day without the weight of expectations from others, no pressure to meet someone else's needs, no fear of disappointing anyone but yourself. That is true freedom, and that is where happiness begins. But why is it so hard to find happiness within? Because we've been conditioned to believe that our worth is measured by others' approval, by how loved we are, how wanted we feel. Yet, the Stoics remind us that self-worth is not determined by external validation, but by our own judgment of ourselves. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." If you constantly seek happiness from others, you give them power over your emotions, over your peace of mind. But if you look within, if you learn to find contentment in your own company, then no one can take that happiness away from you. This is why solitude, when embraced, becomes a source of strength rather than a burden. Think about it. When you depend on someone else to make you happy, you are giving away control over your emotional state. You are at the mercy of their actions, their words, their moods. But when happiness is self-generated, when it springs from a well of inner peace, then nothing external can disturb it. This is what the Stoics meant by emotional independence. It's not about rejecting relationships or isolating oneself. It's about mastering the art of being whole, regardless of who comes or goes in your life. Consider the story of an elderly woman who spent years believing she was incomplete because she never had a family of her own. She watched her friends celebrate anniversaries, grandchildren, family gatherings, and she felt inadequate, as if she had failed to fulfill society's expectations. But then she made a choice to stop defining herself by what she lacked and start appreciating who she was. She began to explore her passions, took up painting, volunteered at community centers, and traveled to places she had only dreamed of. She found fulfillment not in someone else's company, but in discovering the world through her own eyes. She learned to embrace solitude, not as loneliness, but as freedom. This is the essence of Stoic happiness. It's about realizing that nothing external can complete you, because you are already whole. The world may tell you that you need a partner to be happy, that solitude is something to be avoided, that you are incomplete without someone by your side. But these are illusions, social constructs designed to make you feel dependent. The Stoics challenge us to see beyond these illusions, to recognize that fulfillment is a choice, not a condition. Epictetus reminds us, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Mastery of oneself begins with mastering one's mind, with realizing that our thoughts shape our reality. If you believe that happiness is something you must find outside of yourself, you will forever be searching, forever be longing. But if you accept that happiness is a state of mind, that it is a result of contentment and gratitude, then you have the power to be happy wherever you are, whoever you are with, or even when you are alone. Take a moment to reflect on this. How often have you felt unhappy simply because things didn't go as planned? Because someone didn't treat you the way you expected? Because you felt unloved or unappreciated? But what if none of those things actually controlled your happiness? What if you could learn to detach your emotions from external events, to find peace even in the midst of chaos? This is not just a philosophical ideal, it is a practical approach to life. Practice gratitude every day, not for what you receive from others, but for the simple fact that you are alive, breathing, capable of thought, capable of growth. Focus on what you can control, your thoughts, your actions, your reactions. Let go of what you cannot control, other people's opinions, their actions, their expectations. This is where freedom and peace reside. The next time you feel lonely or incomplete, remind yourself that your worth is not defined by someone else's presence. Your happiness is not dependent on external validation. Look within, embrace solitude, cultivate a relationship with yourself. When you learn to love your own company, to find joy in your own thoughts, to appreciate the beauty of silence, you will realize that happiness was never about what was missing, but about fully embracing what was already there. This is the power of Stoicism. It teaches us to find fulfillment in the present moment, to seek joy within ourselves, to break free from the chains of expectation and dependency. So ask yourself, what is truly holding you back from being happy right now? Is it the absence of someone else? Or is it the story you've been telling yourself about what happiness should look like? Change the narrative, reclaim your power, find happiness within yourself, and you will never be without it again. To live single is not to live alone, but to live free. Today we've explored the Stoic truth that happiness doesn't depend on relationships, but on mastering your own mind. It's about finding peace within yourself and realizing that your worth isn't tied to anyone else's approval. Being single isn't about isolation. It's about independence, about living life on your own terms. We've seen how solitude can be a source of strength, how choosing meaningful relationships can enrich your life, and how investing in yourself leads to true fulfillment. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is the essence of Stoicism, the power to find happiness within, regardless of circumstances. But knowledge is useless without action. Today, I challenge you to take one small step toward inner peace. Spend a day reflecting on what truly matters to you, not what society expects, not what others demand, but what genuinely fulfills you. Write it down, hold it close, and let that guide your choices. Remember, freedom and peace come not from avoiding solitude, but from embracing it, from loving yourself without conditions, from letting go of the need for external validation. This is the path to emotional independence, to true happiness. If this video gave you a new perspective, if it helped you see the power of being single, then give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more Stoic wisdom. But more importantly, I want to hear from you. Do you think being single can be a path to freedom? Have you experienced the peace of solitude? Or are you struggling to find fulfillment within? Comment below and let's discuss. Your story could inspire someone who needs to hear it. Because in this community, we learn from each other, we grow together. And if you know someone who could benefit from this message, share this video with them. Remember, happiness is an inside job. It doesn't depend on who stays or who leaves, but on how you choose to live, how you choose to think. So choose freedom, choose peace, choose yourself today and every day. Thank you for watching. And remember, the journey to inner peace starts within. See you in the next video.